Welcome to the Real Ref Report, a fun approach to improving officiating.
You suck, ref!
Keeping it real with real perspectives, educating the wrestling community, and building better relationships between officials, coaches, and wrestlers. Together, let's make reffing great again. Now, here's your host, Andy Eichley.
Welcome, everybody. Podcast here doing about the state tournament seating. My name is Jesse Huff. I'm here with Brian Owen, assistant coach at Gonzaga Prep, head of INWTC. Also with us is Chris Hansen from Wisconsin. That's where I'm from originally. Been here for a few years. I coached with him for a number of years, and he is the head of the Wisconsin Wrestling Association. And they have been doing this a very similar. I'm going to let Chris explain it in depth a lot more than I will. They've been doing a similar seating for a few years now with, I know, remarkable accuracy to their seeds and how the placements are going. So real quick, again, my name is Jesse Huff. I am head coach at Davenport High School. I've been there for 3 years now since I moved out from Wisconsin, and helping Brian at INWTC when I can. So that's where the connection is between him and I. And then again, Chris, I coached with him for 15 years back in Wisconsin. We were from the same small hometown, but coached in Hudson, Wisconsin, which is a bigger school. So, Chris, we're just going to jump right into it. The state seating. I sent you kind of our criteria and what we're using, just kind of to fill you in a little bit. We had a lot of I guess I don't know what the right word I'm looking for is last year. It was a little bit of chaos when they released our brackets, had to pull them back, re-release them a few times after that. And I think their first release was maybe on Sunday, and I think the final one was Tuesday or Wednesday. But why don't you go ahead and just kind of speak to the seating, and Brian I will chime in with some questions.
All right. So, well, first, let me ask you a question. How many years have you been seating? What was that, your first year? Or
yeah, so this is year 2 for us, right? Yeah, year 2 for us.
Okay. So that's not surprising that you had some issues in year 1. And I did look at your data, and even with your issues, it appeared that you had some success in what happened. It wasn't all over the board. It looked like there was certainly some statistical, it was showing that where kids were seated, they were like, I believe I saw with your guys' results that, I mean, if seated in the top 14 or something, you had a remarkable chance to have an opportunity to be on the podium, and below 14, you had almost a 0% chance. So I think it's not surprising you guys had issues in year 1. But I think you also had some successes there too. So I'll start with our background a little bit. So track wrestling originated in Wisconsin. And so it's kind of funny that we were actually a late adopter. This will be our 5th year. There are many states across the country that have been seeding the state tournament longer than we have. And that's just interesting because it's literally in our backyard, but we were hesitant. But 5 years ago, it took, 8 years ago, we really got rolling. Took a few years to get it going. 5 years ago was year number 1 for us. We also had issues on year number 1. We fixed those for year number 2, and we've had smooth sailing in year 2, 3, and 4. And then this is the 5th year. So hopefully that trend will be the same with you guys, that you fixed your issues. And now it'll, like, we have not had to fix anything since year number 1.
Yeah. And I think that most of our issues, and I guess you can maybe speak to this, is how critical this is, came from us coaches not having the correct data entered. So I think that really threw a wrench into a bunch of those plans. I don't know that it was anything from the track portion of it as much as it was us coaches.
So our issue in year number 1 actually was opposite of that. We had some what I'll call under the hood check boxes in the wrong spot with track wrestling. And we fixed those. Now that we have got that fixed, now you're right. 100% of our issues are coach error. Coaches not putting in the correct data, whether that be making a mistake or more likely simply being just, I'll use the word lazy. I don't like to say that because coaches are overworked and underpaid, and distracted, especially when we get to tournament time. But it is an issue. It's the number one issue of coaches just not getting the correct data entered, or all of the data is what I would say. So that's our issue now. But even with that, I think what happens is you have this law of diminishing returns where we've got enough. Like our seeding accuracy is amazing, even with the fact that we still have the issues with coaches not getting enough accurate data in.
You know, I remember when we talked about it last year after the state tournament, I was amazed at how accurate your guys's were. I don't remember what the numbers were off the top of my head, but they were, way more accurate than the old way of us doing this with coaches sitting down and trying to say, hey, this is where it goes. Or actually, Wisconsin used a formula that just dictated it by region or by sectional. We don't have those here. But yeah, so I guess, how accurate have you guys been? And when we say accurate, for me, I'm thinking if we get the top 4 guys in the right spots, that's awesome. Everything else just seems to be more of a crapshoot, and those kids can beat each other on any given day. So they're going to be really hard to get in the right spot, maybe.
Yeah. So that's kind of the tricky part, is there's a lot of definitions that people are going to disagree on as to what is your measurement of success. So prior to 5 years ago, to the terminology you're looking for is we just had a matrix. It was predetermined. The coaches couldn't see it. It was blind, but it was just sectional A is going to wrestle sectional B at this spot in the bracket, sectional C. And I realize you guys have districts, I believe, something like that, but it was just a matrix and it was just random. We never had any type of seeding meeting or anything like that. It was just predetermined matrix. And then of course we moved into the seeding. So with our accuracy, do you think I can share this screen real quick? I think I can. Let me just click on this.
It's here.
You don't need to do anything, Jesse.
I'm
just
not going to touch
it.
Yep. I'm not going to touch anything.
And so let's see. Oh, shoot. I'm not going to, now I'd have to find it again. So I'm not going to do it. So I'll just talk my way through it instead. We had, to give you an example of our accuracy, we are about at 90% of our place winners come from a top 8 seed. So the reason we kind of take top 8 seed when we're looking at, so first of all, let me tell you guys, you guys send way more people to state than we do. And that's going to change our statistics a little bit. So I want to make sure that everybody keeps, what we do in Wisconsin is you have to kind of adjust it to what you do in Washington. We only have 42 total athletes across all divisions go to the state tournament. You guys have a bunch more than that. I'm not sure what your number is. We have 3 divisions, 14 athletes per division, 14 times 3, 42. So, but for instance, in our large school division, 11 of our number 1 seeds, and then we have 14 weight classes. I'm not sure how many weight classes.
We're the same. Yeah.
Okay.
We're the same.
So in our large school that I coach in, 14 weight classes, 11 of the champs were number 1 seeds. And then 2 champs were number 2 seeds. And then we had an outlier, which was a 5th seed. And it's hard to even call a 5th seed an outlier. I mean, if I got the 5th seed, I'm thinking I'm going to be a champ. So that's pretty good accuracy, but that isn't necessarily what a person's definition might be. So because predicting the champ isn't necessarily it. I like to think more about, are the top 5 seeds getting to the semifinals. That's a measurement that I like to see, and our numbers were remarkably high there. But the one I already gave you, that 90% of all place winners came out of a top 8 seed. I think that's showing that the seeding is very accurate. So I think that there's a sweet spot in which some of this becomes theoretical. Like, how accurate do you want the seeds? Do you want to keep working on them until there becomes no reason to attend the state tournament? And I say that a little bit in jest, but when you start getting these seeds, there's a spot where they cannot become any more accurate, because there's going to be what I'll call human error, meaning an athlete doesn't perform. And so it just gets to a spot where it's like, this is the highest it could ever be. And then you just got to kind of decide, like, okay, well, we're close enough to that. Let's not split hairs. So, that's our accuracy, I think, is pretty good in Wisconsin.
So we've talked about their criteria a little bit, and this will probably bring Brian in, because this is probably going to affect you here in a couple of days. So Brian has some really good freshmen, and Chris, you and I have talked about this. Like, that might be the chink in the armor, so to speak, with not seeding these freshmen correctly.
Yeah, so do you guys have middle schoolers? Do you guys have junior high inclusion?
No.
Okay, so you're just a 9 through 12 state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the small school divisions get 8th graders, but let's leave them alone for right now.
Okay. So yep, there's going to be things that are gonna be like, we are 100% aware that elite freshmen are seed breakers. Then what I would challenge you to say is that such a problem? That's kind of nice. That's kind of fun. I mean, it's unless of course you're on the losing end of it. But what I mean by that is we could then go in and we could form a committee. We could put eyeballs onto a committee and start to pick apart these freshmen. And then we sit there with people arguing about an unfair committee with predisposed agendas, and choosing freshmen that come from the best club. And, then all of a sudden, whatever you thought you were getting, you're losing in return. And if we're already having the accuracy that I described with that issue, is that worth it? Is that something that's worth it? And I believe I read in a little bit of the Washington material is that your state organization, ironically the same as ours, the WIAA, does not want committees, and neither does ours. They want this computerized. They want this so that there is no human hands touching any of this. And I think they're pretty strict on that. I don't think we're not in any position in Wisconsin right now to change that attitude. Maybe in the future if we wanted it. But again, I fall back to, if the seeding is already that accurate and we already have that issue, I don't know if we need that. So because both of us already have as number 1 and number 2 criteria head-to-head and common opponents, freshmen get their due seed placement from that. And a coach now I do realize this is hard. Okay. This is my 30th year coaching. I understand this, but a coach has a prerogative to get his elite freshmen out there to get those head-to-head matchups. It's not easy, especially if you're from a small town, don't have a lot of money, hard to travel. But if this was an issue and you got elite freshmen, you got to get them out there where they're going to see these returning state place winners. And if you're not getting your elite freshmen out to see the returning state place winners, then there's not much we can do about it. And it's probably not going to be worth a committee with all the issues that would come from that. That's kind of where I would say with that. So you're right. Elite freshmen are a seed breaker, but what are you going to do about it?
I just wondered, maybe this isn't realistic, is potentially using a Fargo placement as one of the criteria to catch, because that's probably going to catch the vast majority of those freshmen. Is that a real thing, or that's just too difficult, you think?
I don't think there's anything too difficult. I think that so it just depends on how much you want. And then if Washington is similar to Wisconsin, how many people you can convince, people in high places, can you convince that that's worth it? Because I could shoot holes in that right away. I mean, not everybody goes to Fargo. Fargo's freestyle. Not everybody has the money to go to Fargo. That favors the kids that go to clubs. So while I certainly appreciate that, and because me and you have coached together for 20 years, that my kids do go to Fargo, and that favors me. I can look across the state of Wisconsin. I can probably see that would not pass with us because I can shoot too many holes in that. But let you just use an example. The point taken, there are examples out there of what would help a freshman. Let me give you another example. So if you have a freshman who is like you're number 3 in Washington, your number 3 seeding category is where you start getting into returning state place winners. Well, if you have a freshman who is beating state place winners and not losing to non-state place winners, then you could create a system in which it's kind of like follow the leader. If I'm reaching that category, then I can become that category. Would be a way to treat freshmen if you really wanted to work that hard on improving freshmen into the seeding. So I don't know if I explained that well enough, but that would just be another example of like what you said is using Fargo results.
I like Chris's little insert about chaos. I very much enjoy that. There's opportunities for other people in brackets to have success. And so, separating all of them all the time and maybe not having matchups early in the tournament that are exciting and crowd pleasing and all of those somewhat takes away from the first couple of rounds. And so, I like the fact that there's some outliers in there that allows for chaos in brackets.
Yeah, I Brian, Jesse, if I can just step in there, I 100% agree with that, Brian. It's like what we fight the most of. This, I'll tell you, this is kind of a funny thing where it's like, as a coach, you do everything under your power to pull the upset. And when you pull the upset, you then go blame the people who created the seeding and say, see, you're wrong. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We weren't wrong. You were amazing at getting your athlete to go pull the upset. The seeds were right, but you were an amazing coach to go to get your athlete to go pull the upset. And so I think there's a place where maybe the seed can be right and the upset can still happen, and then we're all happy. And that's the chaos that makes it amazing. So go ahead, Jesse. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. For me, and I think Chris, I think you and I can maybe, I don't know. The semifinals are such a big deal and have been a big deal coaching Wisconsin for years. And I feel like, we have a great state tournament. There's a bunch of super positive things, but the semifinals just kind of come and go. And we just don't necessarily see them. Whereas I think when you have if you truly have, or not, if you have 4 of the very best wrestlers that are meeting that semifinal more often, I think those semifinals suddenly become way more exciting than they do otherwise. And we don't have a lot of these lopsided matches that I think we're seeing. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're not seeing, but it feels like to me like we are.
You are now that you have seeding, or I guess the seeding has kind of for us. If I go back 5 years ago, we had the lopsided matches and the great matches. They would have our state tournament's 3 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know what you guys have, but
2.
It used to be that you would have lopsided matches and some great matches on Thursday. It made Thursday more fun, but at the expense of the athletes. The seeding has just kept pushing that farther and farther. The quarterfinals become a little better. The semifinals are amazing. I always think the finals are kind of a step down from the semifinals, because athletes tend to let the fur fly a little bit better in the semifinals than they do in the finals. But the seeding has really pushed that forward and just made that more streamlined, so that you knew what you're getting with each round that you're going into. So the seeding accuracy has helped with that.
Maybe speak for a second. I was texting with you last night about this. If you have a kid that has wrestled, let's call it 157 all year, and for postseason he's going to go to 150. Now, has he hurt himself because he does not have wins against other 150 guys, or is he okay? Will he still be seedable?
So that's complicated. The answer is yes, he's perfectly fine. He did not hurt himself. But it's complicated. It's hard to explain, and it's probably longer than what I can explain right here. You still have the other seeding criterias. And so if you never saw a guy and you don't have any common opponents, and then it just goes down to the third criteria, which is, now we're going to get into your state place, and how you go. I think we do our state placement just a little different in Wisconsin, but we still both have it at that spot. And so then it just keeps going down there. It's not going to hurt your seed or help your seed, because you got to remember that if you went out and wrestled those people, 50% of the time you're going to lose. And so it's, half the time you're going to beat those kids, half the time you're going to lose. That's just how the sport works. And so whatever thought you had that you were going to help your seed, you have an equal amount of chance that you're going to hurt your seed when you actually wrestle the kids. If you don't see them at all, it just goes into the seeding criteria. So the long and short of that answer is, if you want to truly improve your seed, like you don't have seeding criteria, like the freshmen, then yes, get out there and wrestle them. If you've already got seeding criteria, you're a returning state place winner, then it doesn't matter if you've wrestled the kids or didn't wrestle the kids. So it's complicated, but no, it does not hurt you to not have had the head-to-head or the common opponents the way that you think it does.
I think where we struggle a little bit too, or we coaches, and maybe more fans and coaches, probably a more accurate statement, is seeing kids that were in the district finals together, in the district third, fourth place match together, and then boom, right away at state, they're matching up first round at state. And I think tradition and our mindset made us really struggle with that and feel like that was wrong, when the theory is it's probably not wrong at all, right?
So, of all the things, so to kind of go back on this, so you kind of introduced this way. Yeah, I'm the president of the Wisconsin Coaches Association. And even prior to being the president of this, I was on the executive committee. So I'm part of like the development of this. And so aside from also being a head coach, so I take a beating in pretty much around every turn, because it's just human nature of how this is going to be. And on one hand, it's like just overwhelming success. And then on the other hand, you're going to take a beating around every corner of people who are unhappy with how it works. So with what you just said is probably where I have taken the most complaints, and been told how wrong I am, or my committee is, how our state is, how the WIAA is. For some reason, a certain amount of people do not like the fact that you can wrestle a guy in the, in what you guys call the district finals, and then you got a winner and a loser. You go the next week to the state tournament, and now you find yourself in the same first round matchup. And there's ways around that. So if you guys as a state don't like that, and you figure out where your support is, there's ways around that. You don't have to seed. Like in Wisconsin, we have 14-man brackets. We seed straight through. So for us, it happens all the time. If I wrestle a guy in the district finals, and then I become the 2 seed and he becomes the 13 seed, we wrestle in the first round. That just is what it is. But if you don't want to do that, you can you can just seed the district champs, and there's states that do that. When you go into track wrestling seeding, it's like an a la carte. You get to choose what you want. Track wrestling just doesn't say you want seeding, here it is. You get to choose it. And so you guys as a state could say, well, we only want to seed our district champs, and then we want to place our district runners up, or however many you send out of there, whatever, in the opposite, half bracket or whatever. So if that's just your association just needs to, figure out what the support is and bring it to the state association. But in Wisconsin, we seed straight through. Yes, we have lots of times where we have a first round matchup at state that is a rematch of the what we call the sectional finals. And again, it is what it is. It's where the seeds place you. We're a sport based on seeding. And, if 8 wrestles 7 and that's where you guys, fell, then just let the chaos happen. So I personally, I like it. My athletes have many times had to wrestle the same person that they had just wrestled the week before. We've done it before. Jesse, you and I, when we were young coaches together, we would have kids who would have to wrestle in the conference finals, the regional finals, the sectional finals. Then they get, it's not uncommon to have to wrestle a quality opponent back-to-back weeks. So we've done it before.
I'm just reading a question here, Chris. And I didn't get all the way through. I'll just read it and I'll ask it to you. How valuable is it placing at state last year compared to a state participant last year with a better record than you this year? So there's a lot of information there. Which seed criteria gives you the most or least seed points?
Okay, so I know exactly what he's saying, but I think what he's not quite understanding how the system works. So only one seed criteria matters, and it's whatever the highest one was. So I think in his example, he said, what is more important, last year's state place versus then whatever it is down the road? Well, last year's state place is more important, and then you just stop right there. You don't go any farther. So criteria number 1 is head-to-head matchups. Criteria number 2 is common opponent matchups. Criteria number 3 is your last year's state place. It got solved right there. You don't go down any farther. So if you reread that question, Jesse.
How valuable is it placing at state last year compared to a state participant last year with a better record?
Okay. Well, stop right there. So state place last year is better than any other thing that you're going to read to me for the rest of that question. So you can just stop right there. The state place last year is going to get that seed point over that single opponent as this criteria plays itself out.
Yep, that makes sense. Chris, I don't think you realize this, but the one more dynamic that we have to, not only can you get the same, district guy that you have, but because we can send 2 guys at each weight class, you often could get a teammate that you will wrestle first round as well. So you could wrestle your own teammate first round.
That's interesting. I now you're going to make me go see if any other state has that. That is, I've never even heard of that before.
Chris, I'll tell you this. I had a perplexed look on my face the first time they told me, but it has grown on me, and I actually don't mind it, Brian. It's okay with me that we're sending 2 guys potentially at each weight class, and for the first time, I'm going to do it. We're going to send 2 guys at 138. Hopefully, maybe they won't qualify, but I intend to send 2 guys at 138 this year.
I've always been in the West, and so most of the states around here do it that way, and so I don't know a lot different. It's ingrained. But you get the opportunity to put 2 guys in weight class.
Well, how many kids can you guys send to districts? Like you're
2 people per weight class for 14 weights.
Yep. So 28.
So you guys can send your varsity and junior varsity to your district tournament.
Yep.
I did not know that.
We don't have any other questions. So I think hopefully we've helped somebody, or at least helped myself at the very least with this state seating. And I think it's positive. I know Brian just says, hey, draw them out of a hat, put them where they go, and let's just wrestle. That's how he wants to do it, old school style. That's not me. I want to get them seated and I want to have really good semifinals match and really making that be a highlight of the state tournament.
So Brian, I have a question for you then. Would you also be okay with that the entire season long? No tournament seeds?
Yeah, I think that's like whether I'm riffing or whether that's just a little bit of nostalgia from like the old line brackets and, shoot, being able to lose a match at a tournament and come back and win, a gold medal is just something interesting about that, right? Like just being, being being the toughest guy in the bracket. And sometimes that comes with, wins and losses. And, but yeah, I like seeing, competitive matches earlier in brackets, oftentimes where like everybody has a fair chance, um, to get through a bracket. And it's not just like, okay, well, that these seeds are going to get there. Yeah, sometimes takes a little bit of the interest out of it.
Yeah, it's an you like the like you already said it. You like that chaos. You like what Jesse and I are our old days of what we were used to, those Thursday night matchups where it's like, oh my God, number 1 and number 2 are wrestling on Thursday night. You just like that chaos all the way through. But my kind of counter to that is we're just and I can't speak for necessarily your guys' spot, but we're seeding in the Olympics, we're seeding in the NCAA tournament, we're seeding in the NFL, we're seeding in baseball. We seed every single wrestling tournament all through the season. We then get to the state tournament, and up until 5 years ago, we were not seeding, and that was kind of the catalyst to say, wait a minute, what makes the most important tournament the only one that is different? And that's kind of where everybody was like, well, yeah, I mean, we're a sport of seeding. Why would we stop there? So I do like your sentiment of how that would be fun, and it makes everybody bring their A game at all times. But to me, it's we're a sport of seeding, and why stop at the state tournament?
Yeah, my version of fun versus the sacrifice of everybody else might not be the best plan.
Well, yeah, and I will tell a quick story that yes, this is true to Brian because we were at a tournament this year with them, and they had a really good 132 pounder, and Brian had chosen not to enter any of the seating criteria for any of his kids. So he had a kid that was an absolute hammer that got like the 7th seed.
Can I blame this on the head coach first?
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll blame this on Danny for sure. So Danny, if you're listening, I'm upset with you about this. But so they were the 7th seed. Unfortunately, my Davenport kid was the 10th seed, which means we were going to wrestle the very first round. And so no, I did not let that fly. I made sure to let everybody know that the Gonzaga prep kid had to be seated. Another thing that is a first year for Washington, Chris, is I think I'm using the right word. It wasn't sanctioned by the WIA. They were, I think, behind it. They were in support of it.
Partnership.
There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Is our first dual state tournament. Chris, there's something you and I have had extensive conversations about. We both came from Turtle Lake, which is a small school where the team component was never a real thing when we competed. And then when we started coaching together in Hudson had never been to team state, so it wasn't really on the front of our radar. But as we started to build that team, I think it was 2010, maybe was that the first year that we made it, that we qualified. Irrelevant, I guess.
But yeah.
Yeah. Once we did that thing the one time, and I'm going to speak to it because what I think it did for us, I thought it just from then forward, I think our kids were just better. Like our lesser kids, our JV kids, they got better. Our better kids got better, and it was up and down the line. And it was such a great experience for those kids as a team that it actually became almost more important to us than the individual state tournament in a sense, because it was just so much more enjoyable. And Brian and Gonzaga Prep this year, they were the 4A state champs. So maybe Brian, I guess, just tell us what was the experience? Was it, what did you like, or was there anything you didn't like about it, or just, give us the overall.
Yeah, inaugural year in doing that, the guys did a really good job of setting it up, getting information out ahead of time before the season. And they used, just like anything, going through and try to figure out the best way to do it once you were given a thumbs up, to be able to host the event. And so they grabbed I think it was the top 8 place winners team wise from the year before, and they invited them to join, and then also said this year, okay, we're going to take the champions of each league, and you're also invited to the tournament. Part of that also came down to how much time do you have in order to do this, because it is new, and so you're fitting it in. And so some of the league champions are crowned on a Wednesday and Thursday, and then that event was on a Saturday. And so not knowing who was going to be there in some of the district tournaments, made it a little bit difficult to plan. And then they also this year had some at-large bids, and so the host team got to put a team in because they were doing it at local high schools, and then also had the coaches committee to get together and say, hey, we need to invite this team or this team. They might not have qualified last year, but circumstances changed, and that was an invitation for us in an at-large system. And so, I think they did a good job. They ran, 4 mats. I think we had 14 teams there, and overall it was good. Every team got 2 matches. So even if you lost in the first round, they got everybody a match after that. And then if you lost in the semifinal, you had a third place match and had a couple fifth place dual meets as well. And so, it was a really fun experience. Glad to be a part of it. Once again, there's just a little bit different in, dual and individual format where, you get everybody rallying behind one guy, as we well know, for a normal league duels. But, to be at a state event when you have all the teams there, everybody's lined up, everybody's on their bench. Pretty special, because, again, that's not something that we commonly have done out here. And so you had an event back in the day called Dream Duels, which they tried to replicate this. But this was the first, call it semi-official, state championship. And it was pretty wonderful.
So a couple questions. Then I presume it sounds like you were all in one division.
Nope, they still separated the divisions. And so, it was 16 teams invited for 4A, 3A, AA, and I'm not sure what they did for the.
They held them at different locations. Each division was at a high school, for lack of better words. At different locations.
Okay. So then my next question is, so the WIAA, they were in partnership with it, or certainly supportive of I presume the Coaches Association putting it on. Yep. Is that what you said? So, but then did they say now what's the timeline? When does this become official and you can get that trophy in the school buildings and things like that, where it's WIA is actually saying that worked? You guys did a nice job. We're going to take it over from here and make this official. What kind of timeline did they give you?
I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in the committee, and so I don't know the answer to that. But they did. Coaches Association did trophies and all of the normal procedures. And so I'm not sure when they're if and or when they might sanction that as an official event. I don't know the answer to that.
I think it was a wait and see approach. I remember a video that Justin Kesterson did at the beginning of the year. I think it's when it was just kind of talking about it. And I think it was hey, we need to wait and see just kind of how this goes and what this dynamic looks like. I just think it's such a positive thing for the sport and the growth of the sport. I think we have more kids that, maybe aren't going to get many wins, but they can be part of a state championship team or a really successful team. I think that really motivates them to continue to do it and push hard, and in turn they become a better wrestler. So I think it's great for the sport. And I think, Chris, you agree with that too.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, I think that, like the way that I think the best way to coach is that it's the coach's job to create the team. And then it's the individual to put his own onus on himself to say, how great can I personally be? And so you want to build the sport, growing the sport means numbers. And there's no reason for a coach to go out and comb those hallways for athletes until he realizes he doesn't have a 175 pounder and a 113 pounder. And then he's knowing that his team can be great if he goes out and finds those 2 kids. and that's kind of how we get those. I don't want to put a lot more work on coaches. We're overworked already, but at the end of the day, you got to get out there and get recruiting if you want to have those teams getting into the state team tournament series and into the team state and start winning those team titles. So I think it's huge. I would say that's my, we've been successful as a team, and I would, as I look back in a career, those team successes are much better than the individual successes that I've had. So I think it should. I want to point out that in Wisconsin, our state championship comes from a dual meet. We don't have a state championship from the individual tournament that I'm guessing you guys do. I'm guessing that you guys crown a state champion from your individual tournament.
Yep.
Yeah, we do. And actually, now that is one of the dynamics that they talked about is now that you're saying that, whereas how to do that, where you have the individual state championship. And I know what Justin spoke to is like, football doesn't get two different state champions, or basketball. There's no other sport that would get two different state championship teams, right? And it's just like, what does that dynamic look like?
That would be a pretty big point of contention, like you say, whether it's nostalgia, right, wrong, and different. That's the way that we've done it. And if that were to even be up for consideration, that would be a contentious point, because we very much pride ourselves in that individual state tournament and building teams, and not just that, having two guys, be able to represent your team per weight class. And so, yeah, there's a lot more on the table than just, switching something over.
Yeah, 100%. I will tell you that I'm old enough to have been around when that happened in Wisconsin. So 1992, when we prior to that, up till 1991, we crowned our state champion from the individual tournament. We switched that over. We don't even keep score at the individual state tournament. We switched that over to the team state tournament. It became a wildly successful, popular event to also attend and watch. And and now here we are, 25 years later and 30 years later, and it's all anybody knows, and there's no looking back to it. So, but I definitely agree, it would be extremely contentious. But I don't see that you could ever give out two trophies. So your state association would just make a decision, and in Wisconsin 30 years ago, we took away team score, individual scoring, and went to the dual tournament.
Yep.
I don't think that's up for debate at this point in time. And yeah, person preference, I don't know if I would ever want it to be. I like it the way that it is.
Yeah. It's just a different dynamic completely, right?
But adding a dual meet type of event, regardless of whether that becomes your, scholastic trophy champion, was the important part, right? Being able to get, those teams together, being able to get great competition, great coaching, all those things in the same building to highlight the sport, that was kind of groundbreaking.
Yeah, and if people can latch on to your coaches association sponsoring a trophy, which becomes very symbolic of that, and it doesn't have to be the WIAA's trophy. Maybe the happy medium is that you keep both trophies. You don't have to get rid of one to have the other. You can have them both. So maybe that is the happy medium where you just did it this year.
I still like at least the idea or the thought. And again, I'm super appreciative of year one, so I'm definitely not complaining at all. I think what they did is awesome, and hats off to them. There's definitely enough people complaining. I don't need or want to be one of them. I think getting it all into one location on the same weekend, where you have all the divisions, might add to the to the excitement of it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where we have all four. Even
I'm sure there'll be a lot of ideas put out in the future. Again, don't want to act like it was put together in a short time, because that's not the truth. But I think it's being able to get high school facilities and not pay out for X amount of large facilities is a big part to that. And okay, if you're going to have it 16 teams or 8 teams, and then that's per division. Well, how many mats is that going to be? How many sessions is that going to be? Chris, we were able to do this on one day. And so because you didn't have a consolation, we were out of there by 6 o'clock and had 16 team brackets. And so that was, that was a positive thing as well. As not, we have match count limits, we have date count limits, and so not to stretch everybody too thin as well as this thing was being organized. And I think they did a great job with those limitations. Anything that you put, extra on that, like you say, is a whole transformation and more time, energy, and effort. Not that it can't be done, but yeah, I think that's what they were up against on year one was match count, date counts, location, costs, team costs, because that's another team traveling for another event that they didn't plan on.
Yeah.
Shelling out for hotels and buses and everything else.
Sure. So because it wasn't part of the WIA tournament series, it had to count against your match count and your number of events. So, a state like Minnesota, they do team and individual all together on the same weekend. They've been able to manage that for many years, as long as I ever remember. Wisconsin does it differently. We have individual one weekend, and then the next weekend we come back for team, which is an enormous cost to the, schools like where I'm at, where we're so far away because it's long travel and expensive hotels. But it's every state has a different system and a different way of doing it. And I think one of the things when you're trying to look at what we might want to change, the chances are it's already being done. You just got to go find where it's being done and kind of get the answers. So like I said, like Jesse, you wish that you think everything being done together would really be helpful. Then you kind of look at that Minnesota model and see how they make that work.
What I don't like about the Minnesota model is the fact that it's that same weekend, because it that you have the individual dynamic with your athlete. Man, do we need to save him for his individual tournament or vice versa? But yeah, Minnesota has certainly been very successful, and they, like you said, they've done it for years that way.
So they do sessions, is that right? You do like a morning session, individual. Midday would be do you go into dual meets and then you go back to individual tournament in the afternoon? Is that how they do it?
Yeah, I think that, and I think they might start a day earlier too. Okay. So they just build more time in there. But it's one of those things where it's like, it obviously is working for them. I mean, they're an amazingly successful state with, and we hear no complaints. It's what they like. It's just different than what we do in Wisconsin, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where we go, and I haven't heard much from the coaches yet. I'm sure we will when we get down to Tacoma, like what the feedback is, I guess, and see where it goes from there. But yeah, it's like I said, I'm just super happy that we got year one in, and it took a lot of effort from a lot of people to make it happen. So it's again, kudos to them. It's super cool. Yeah. Well, Brian, you had a late practice, already a late night for you.
Yeah.
Hey, Jesse, can I jump in quick before you? Yeah. So I'm looking at the chat, and there was a question that came through here that I'll see if I can respond to. A wrestler is a state placer last year, but then he lost head-to-head this year. He adds.
I see it. Yep.
Okay, so a wrestler's a state placer last year, but he lost head-to-head this year to a guy in his bracket. But then that wrestler lost to a different state participant. What order would they be seated? So, so those go back into. So let's just break this down. Like, let's just don't go 3 deep. A wrestler is a state placer last year, but he lost head-to-head to a guy this year. But then the guy who won head-to-head gets the seed point. He doesn't get the seed, he gets the seed point. And remember, it's a system of how many seed points do you get. So it doesn't, in that case, the head-to-head would trump being the state placer last year. But then that wrestler loses to somebody else. So now you're comparing, now the seed point was just given between those two. So again, this is a question from a person who doesn't understand how it works. So
Yeah,
when
Chris, I
the
think that was even something this weekend. My understanding of it was a little bit different, and go back to just the way it used to be. Okay, if you're seeding 4 people, you put all the criteria together, and then you would come out with 1, 2, 3, and 4. Where if you want to describe like how the seed points are actually accrued, so we have 32 people, in the bracket, meaning you can only get 31 points, and
Yep.
then your seeding is only against the person that you're referring to in the bracket.
right.
So you're not he beats him, he beats him, he beats him. Those are kind of irrelevant. It's just the you're only comparing two
Right.
people.
Right. So in this example, the wrestler was a state placer last year, but then he lost head to head to a different guy. Stop right there. The guy who won head to head gets that seed point. Now, his second half of the question says, but then that guy lost to a different guy. Well, now you're comparing those two guys, and the guy he lost to is going to get the seed point. But all those things are not connected. You're comparing each person individually. So you've got 32 people in a bracket. You start with wrestler A. You compare wrestler A to wrestler B, wrestler C, wrestler D, wrestler E, all the way down, and you accumulate of my 31 possible points, how many did I score? Now do that for wrestler B. Of my possible 31 points, how many did I score? Do that for wrestler C. And you're going to do it 32 times. And now you have this number that everybody has. And then you just put them in order. And so like, it's not the first thing you got to understand is that state seeding is not the way that you seed other tournaments. It is how many points can I accumulate, and then you just put us in order. So I just wanted to answer that guy's question a little bit because I think it's a good question, but I think he's still not quite understanding what the system works, and that's why he had the question. So does that make sense, or do you want me to clarify that anymore?
Nope, I think that's just so new that most people are going to fall into that same boat. Like I said, 4 days ago, I was that exact same person going, well, wait a second, how could this be? And just go back to you're not comparing 3, 4, 5 people. You're only comparing 2 people.
Yep. The one person, you're comparing me against one guy.
Yep.
And which one of us gets the seed point? Me. All right. Let's move to me versus the next guy. Which one of us gets the seed point? Oh, it's him. Okay. Let's go to the next guy who gets the seed point.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yep, and even why you get 8,000 texts from me, Chris, is because I still struggle with it as well, even though you've explained it to me 10 times.
I'd be remiss, Jesse. You got to bring up your new wrestling club.
Oh yeah, a shameless plug, Chris. You'll appreciate this too, maybe. Brian has been so kind as to help. He has INWTC that he runs out of Gonzaga Prep. And am I saying Gonzaga wrong all these years? Is it Gonzaga or is it Gonzaga?
It's Gonzaga.
Gonzaga Prep.
You just said it wrong again.
I know. Anyways, we are starting a girls only club that will be ran. So we're broadcasting from Liberty Launch Academy right now in Liberty Lake. And we are going to start a girls club that will be just girls only, freestyle and Greco, which is, honestly, I can't think of another one that's been girls only that's in the Spokane in the Northwest area.
Not that I know of.
So I think it's the first one. We have, I'll let you give them their credentials, but Chris, you'll know who these guys are.
Yeah, we've partnered with the best wrestler. And so
absolutely.
George Ivanov was a 2016 Olympian, and that was a former college teammate of mine. And then his dad, Ivan Delchev Ivanov, he's going to help us as well. And so, he's former national team coach for Bulgaria, and then he's traveled around the world. He's coached wrestling on 4 different continents, but he's been in the U.S. now for maybe close to a couple decades, I think, pretty consistently. But yeah, formerly at Sioux Plays and had his own gig at DTA, and he's helping his son with the best wrestler. And so, yeah, we partnered with those guys, and so they're going to put together some curriculum for us, and then also come and be hands-on and help us coach as well.
Nice. When will that get rolling?
The week after our state tournament. And so our guys team will practice Monday, Wednesday, and girls team practice Tuesday, Thursday.
Right. So it'll be all set for trying to get to, I presume you guys have, Washington has like somewhere in the April to May range, a freestyle Greco state tournament. Well, not Greco
Yep.
for the girls, but a freestyle state tournament for the girls.
First
So it'll
weekend
be rolling for that.
Yeah, first weekend in May is our state tournament, and then also the first weekend in April, Spokane's been lucky enough, we host the women's national tournament.
Okay.
And so we've hosted that, I think, the last 3 years, and so it's here again. And so, yeah, what a great way to highlight the gals that are local.
Right. Your timing is perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, and Chris, you know me, I steal all my technique from other people, right? At least 99% of it. And if you remember, George actually did a I told you this, Brian. George did a video many years, or DVD many years ago, for like Fanatic Wrestling, maybe is who it was for. I don't even recall. But Austin Koski, is that you obviously remember Austin, right, Chris?
Yeah.
You remember he got pretty good with his I'm going to call it a Russian arm. They don't like it. They like just the 2-on-1, right? But I'm going to call it a Russian arm always. And I used his video and literally his Russian arm for everything that we did with Austin. And so it was kind of cool when he came into practice that day, and oh man, there he is right there. So yeah, they're super good. I'm excited to have them for sure.
That's funny that small wrestling world, all of a sudden it's like 12 years later and you're like, I owe you a thank you for some success I had 12 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, shameless plug. Thanks, Brian, for reminding me.
We're very excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So, hopefully that this helps somebody understand the seating a little better, at least me, for at least one person, right?
Same boat.
Yeah. I know, I think it was Brian Elfie and Boomer put out the email that Justin sent out. So thank you to those guys. I don't know you guys yet. Hopefully I'll meet you soon, maybe at Tacoma. But yeah, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. And, hopefully some of the, like you said, Wisconsin chaos year one, we had a little bit of chaos. Hopefully the brackets are released just once and they're close, and we keep moving forward.
Yeah. Thanks to Washington Wrestling Network for giving us a platform.
For sure.
And the coaches podcast as well, or referees podcast, I guess it is.
So guys, just, any viewers on here or you two, if you want further clarification, reach out to me. Like I said, I'm the president of the Wisconsin Coaches Association, so my email is easy to find. Just, Google that. And I'd be happy to clarify anything that I said or take something a little bit deeper. So thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. I think that did it. There we go.
How do you know if you're
Um,
still live?